how do you perform with other people? When you're on stage, you are a mirror. Whatever you're putting out to the audience is what you will probably get back. The thing that got me over the last hump of like the adrenaline that like throws you off and makes you shake was... Hello everybody and welcome to Missing a Beat, the podcast where we talk about drumming and drumming related topics and also the most commonly asked drumming related questions. We're here in the Zoom room in the Sound Service headquarters here in Berlin, and I'm here joined with the one and only Chris Keeling, and today we're going to be discussing what?
Performance skills.
Another broad topic. And
exactly.
Just to kind of dive in a bit deeper to that, more how do you perform with other people? Because I think a lot of people want to play in bands and go to jam nights and such, and they don't know how to conduct themselves.
I think the first thing we can talk about then is stage fright. Because I feel like that's a debilitating thing that a lot of people struggle with.
And big time performers struggle with.
Yeah, it's not like this is unique to people that haven't done it before. So I'm pretty sure I've asked you this before, but you've not really had stage fright particularly, have you?
Not really. And that is a benefit to having had performed since I think I was about nine, I think.
We should insert the clip of you playing when you're... How old are you?
Yeah, I think I must have been about 9.
Yeah.
Ish.
Oh, yeah, we'll insert that here quickly.
But I think I was performing before that anyway. I think that was in me. I remember being like 3 and having a big acoustic guitar. And just doing this in front of my parents. So it's always been a thing. I've always had a massive ego and I need the attention. But what I say to people, and this is something that developed as I felt more comfortable in my playing, that certainly helped. But exposure to playing regularly helps. And the thing that got me over the last hump of like the adrenaline that like throws you off and makes you shake kind of side of it was going to uni.
Yeah.
You don't have to go to uni to get over this, but like just it's the regular performing in front of people and reassuring yourself that you have got yourself, and this is where practicing and getting the skills you feel like you need down is very helpful and will ease the stage fright. The thing I think about, and the thing I've talked about in videos before, and a really simple way you can think about this is when you're on stage, you are a mirror. So whatever you're putting out to the audience is what you will probably get back. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a direct reflection, but if you look like you're having a fantastic time and you're laughing when you make mistakes, as long as they're not too, terribly bad, and that comes down to skills that you will practice and get that foundational level of playing down. But if you look like you're having a good time, the audience will feel relaxed. Doesn't necessarily mean they're having a good time. You can't control how people feel, but it means that they're like at ease because you're at ease, and therefore the performance can just go a lot better. Whereas when you see, often the case is guitarists, right? When you see them looking down like this and not moving and just not really performing, not giving anything out, and therefore they won't get anything back from the audience. So that's what I try and think about. And going back to the kind of laughing at your mistakes thing, that's massive. Because if you think about someone performing and they're like going full whiplash, beating themselves up when they make a mistake, then no one's going to feel comfortable watching that, and it's just not conducive for good vibes, really. So what's your take on it?
I think what Emma's saying is true. I think it also depends at what level you're playing stuff, right? There's certain gigs where, we've got Vicky O'Neill in the other room right now who's doing major gigs, and she just did the one for Channel 4 for the Paralympics homecoming, and that's it there. You ain't laughing at a mistake in those situations.
No.
And that can break your career.
But if you're doing it for a job, then you're probably over the main hump of...
But then you're not... You hear a lot of performers. Is it Pink, right? And Adele. I think both of those guys, they throw up before they got on stage still.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's like a thing. Maybe Robbie Williams as well. Yeah, and I'm sure then there's lots of drummers that we just don't hear about that have that problem. So I think that not necessarily it's learning how to cope with them. I think it's Michael Phelps, the swimmer, the Olympic swimmer, who he talks about, actually it's about, when asked the same question, he's about what's your perception of what that is. So being nervous, that nervous energy could also be excited energy.
Aren't
they're the same feeling, supposedly.
Neurochemically?
Yeah. It's just how you perceive it. So I get this a lot, probably more than actually all you guys realise. I'm constantly like that with things like playing in front, but it doesn't affect my performance particularly.
Yeah, I get
actually excited and I'm buzzing. But a lot of people, if they just jumped into my body with their brain, maybe they would perceive that as nervousness. But I'm just like, that's how I've trained my brain to think about it. I have no idea how you can train your brain to think like that.
I think that's where it comes from, the regular performing and being able to reassure
that helps.
yourself.
Yeah, that helps. And I think for a lot of people that will work. And I think putting yourself in an environment when you perform and baby steps. So don't go and do a Channel 4 gig as your first gig because you're probably going to crumble. If you build it up over time. So I don't think people realise, but performing means anybody watching you. That is the definition
your
of
dog
performance.
Counts.
Your dog counts. Yeah. You can perform firstly maybe in front of your friend or friends or family or partner, whatever that might be.
I actually find that worse.
It's harder. But at the same time you can do it and they're supportive of you. And it's a first step. So that's the first one, especially when they're in the audience. That's the worst thing, right? That's horrible. But then the next one actually isn't now go to a jam night necessarily. It's maybe try and find a few other people that feel the same. They don't have to be the same level of musicianship. Maybe actually sometimes if a couple of people are a little bit better than you, then actually that's not a bad thing because they'll help kind of get you into that environment. Go and jam with them in a closed off room where you can be more relaxed and not feel like there's an audience as such. Then you can take that up to the next. So and then an open mic where honestly you're probably going to have other people making mistakes. I don't think I've ever been to an open mic. And so you've got a lot of excuses to not play well. Do you see what I'm saying?
Also, social media. Post on social media.
That's a perfect example. Yep.
Yeah, because honestly...
You can get multiple takes then.
Yeah. Well, as long as you don't care too much about random strangers on the internet's opinions, you'll be fine.
Yeah, turn the comments off.
But so that's one topic of performance skills, which is quite an important one. Yeah. But I often talk about how learning drums and teaching yourself or having lessons, yada, 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 that's a different set of skills, and reading sheet music, stuff like that, to being in a room with another musician and knowing what to do and what to play and what signals are going on. Because I personally have been doing it so long, it's things I don't even think about. A student of mine the other day, I blew his mind by saying, you get to control when this song stops when you're playing live, because he was talking about how the singer just wasn't calling the ending and it was like, going on forever. You just make eyes with everyone, mouth 1, 2, 3, 4 and slow down while you do it. And they will follow you. Yeah.
And if they don't, I mean...
And if they don't, you're still right because you put the ending there. So not your problem. Someone's got to take the lead. And more often than not, like in a lot of situations, especially when everyone's learning and developing, I found that I was the one doing it. Yeah. I hate to say the stereotype of singers don't know what they're doing.
Cut to alone. We have some rude gestures coming over. Yeah.
But it's not so much that, it's just singers have a different set of skills, and more often than not, they're not told how to direct a band.
But really good singers do that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But it's a level of training that needs to happen for every musician, really.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've got to decide, and I told him, decide who's the MD, the musical director, who's in charge, who's calling the shots. And you can kind of roll from there. At the end of the day, it's the beginning and the ending that counts of a song. What happens in the middle can move and change and shift, basically. And there's like hand signals that you don't really think about. Go from the top of the song, the intro, the beginning of the song, or you're literally just lip reading to see what section they're going. Go for a chorus or something, or repeat, same thing again. Things like that you just pick up. Yeah. But if you're all brand new musicians, you don't have any of that. Yeah. So sometimes it's actually good to have a more experienced musician in the room going.
Yeah, one person.
Yeah. And that for me was the benefit of uni, is you get a bit more of that. You have exposure to people who are actually doing it in the industry.
And you can be in a workshop where actually we can all just pause a second, right on the spot. This is what you're doing wrong. Let's run that one bit again and go for that.
Exactly.
But you can do that in band practice, and that's just good practice.
Absolutely. But sometimes you need, and that's what this podcast is for, people to tell you what you can do. And like, for example, in a real gig situation, you have an MD often or someone on a mic, a talkback mic. So no one else in the audience can hear, but the band can hear it if you're on in-ears, which is just in-ear monitors, basically headphones. So more often than not, just to keep things interesting for the band, if you're playing a wedding gig, you're changing the arrangement on the fly because everyone's bored. So people being like, on the one, you stop on the one. Yeah. Things like that, or the singer is going too long and they've messed up a lyric or something. Yeah. Piece of advice, more often than not, if you're completely lost, follow the singer. Yeah. Because that is the direct line to the audience. Yeah. The audience is usually paying attention to the singer. They're the one out the front doing their thing. So if you ruin their flow and make them sound really bad by moving to the chorus when they're still doing the verse, not good. So it's usually the singer you're listening to. And then if there's someone else in the background in charge of the band making the shot, calling the shots, they can then go, we're going now, 2, 3, 4, and then you're in and you're all together. And if you don't have in-ear monitors and you're just at a jam night, that's where it's the eyebrows. The eyebrows say a lot.
I mean, you've got to remember that in most scenarios, and even if they can, it doesn't actually matter. If you're in a jam situation, you go onto an open mic and you're just playing with people, you can actually just shout at people, right?
Oh yeah,
and catch their attention, even if they don't even understand what you're saying. Then you can give a musical cue of a fill slowing down. Like
this is what I mean of like it's all in the eyebrows. Legit, it's like, yes, we're going now. The next bit, it says everything you need to know. And as long as you, and maybe it's worth talking about this, what is the foundational level of ability you probably want to be able to go and do that? And that's probably lower than you think.
It is way lower, and it depends what you're doing. If you're going with a jam and it's a song you've never heard and you're just jamming, that's one skill. If you're in a band and you guys have been working on something for a while and it's a song that you've learned, then actually you can go in pretty low with it. People think that, I mean, for example, when we did the music school in person, we actually tried to get people on stage within 2 lessons.
Yeah.
2 lessons. And people go, wow, how would you do that? It's like, well, okay, actually we can maybe just give them just a kick drum to do that, or a tom to keep the beat, and choose a song where there's just a forward and forward. But it breaks that belief of like, I have to be a virtuoso. And actually it's like, well, you're probably going to get to a high level by being on stage. Yep. That's the way to get better.
You want to be learning the skills simultaneously of you're getting better at the instrument and you're getting better at performing at the same time.
Yeah. And they go hand in hand, don't they? Yes. The better you get at playing, the better you're going to perform, but the better you perform, the better you get at playing. Because you know what the priorities are. I think for drummers, I think the problem is people think that what matters is playing stuff that sounds fancy, fills, chops, all this kind of stuff. And you soon realise being on stage that goes out the window. So the longer you prolong going on stage and being in the band, your belief is trying to sound impressive.
A 4 to the floor pays the bills.
Yeah.
That's it.
But even just like for people that are just thinking about this, is like they feel like they have to sound good. This is this conversation I feel like I've had far too many times. Like, I'm not good enough yet because I can't do X, Y, and Z complicated things. But it's like you don't need to almost for anything you're going to be doing. If you're listening to this and you're struggling with what we're talking about, that's the thing that you need to get.
Yeah, I don't use 80% of the flowery, funky, linear, choppy, amazingly complicated rudiments, mixing subdivisions, blah, 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 blah. Don't use any of that.
Groove.
Legit. Because your role as a drummer is to hold everyone together and to tell everyone where the timing is, and if it's a dancey thing, how you should be dancing, where you should be dancing, how fast are we going. That's literally it. So everything else is like, it should be adding to the music, not adding to your ego.
Yeah, that's it. And I think the last thing with that is that so often the drummer is the quote unquote MD, the musical director, because I think just where you are on stage, everyone can come to you, you're stationary.
Or the bass player.
Or the bass player.
Or the keys player. Actually, that point is completely...
But I would say no, but I'd say really more commonly it's becoming the drummer, from what I can see. And because as well, I think you can... subtle things like just start opening up the hi-hat a little bit more and you're the whole band, if anyone's paying attention to you, that they're like, oh, something's changing. Right. But it's so subtle that the audience would have no idea that's happening.
Yeah. And that's the role. Some people wonder what the role of a fill actually is. Yeah. It's not to show off. No. It's to tell people something's happening. There is a transition into something else. Yeah. As a general, especially if you're jamming with people, right? Oh, yeah. If it's your band and you've rehearsed things and you want to put fills in the middle of verses and stuff, okay, you can do that, and that's a musical decision. Yep. It generally highlights even little fills, like really subtle ones. They're good for noting. Oh, this is 4 bars.
Yeah, we're halfway through.
This is a cycle is done kind of thing.
Exactly.
Like if you think about with a 12-bar blues. If you don't know much about music, this might go straight over your head. But like, there's what's called a turnaround at the end, and musically, the whole band does it, like a da da da, boom, and then you're back on the one. Like it's just signifiers like that help direct you, and they're not silent, but they're not spoken as such. We're not going, this is the turnaround. Yeah. We're going over here on the one. It does it with music, and that's kind of what you want, because you want music to be this wordless thing that makes you feel things in general.
So I think that's it. I think the big thing is coming back to the performance, that was stage fright and getting into a band, because I think that's the biggest thing that stops people to start with. You just need to get experience doing
make mistakes.
Make mistakes, go and do it. And like as scary as that is, I think
because the skill is recovery. Like how you recover yourself. I make mistakes still quite frequently. Yep. And it's just about how you cover it. You get better at covering your mistakes. Yep. That's what really happens.
Yeah. And even at that high level we're talking about, there's mistakes happening.
Absolutely.
It's again how you recover. If it's putting you completely out of time and throwing the band off, then that's a real problem. If you've hit a mid-tom rather than the low tom, I think we're going to be fine.
I think we'll get through. Yeah. Which is just emphasising the point of count. If you aren't counting, please count. Learn how to count. Anyway.
Yeah, good.
Yeah,
I think that's a
good.
nice place
If you have any questions about performing on stage, how do I do it, what do I do, then just feel free to leave them down in the comments. Other than that, I hope you have a fantastic day. And big love. Mwah. Bam!